إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، واشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، واشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى أهله ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. We give praise and thanks to Almighty Allah. We ask Him to shower His blessings upon the noblest of mankind, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the one who said, فَإِنَّ خَيْرَ الْحَدِيثِ كِتَابُ اللَّهِ وَخَيْرَ الْهَدِي هَدْيُ مُحَمَّدٍ صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Praise and blessings of Allah be upon him, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, members of his family, his household, his companions, and all those who have threaded, are walking, and will come to thread this path of Al-Islam. Now, alhamdulillah, last week one of the things we talked about was Al-Mubhath Al-Sadis, the second subsection here, which was Zakatul-Dain, that is zakah on loans that was given out, loan stroke debts. In this case, the first we talked about was the loan that we talked about was loan that is given out. Said as-sawab min aqwali ahli al-ilm, that the most correct, Allahu a'lam, from the statement of the people of knowledge is that anna dain alladhi yanqusu nisab la yamna'u zakah, is that dain, a loan that one gave out, alladhi yanqusu nisab, and that loan, if one doesn't factor it into the nisab, then it will make the wealth that one has to be lower than the nisab. But if one were to add it, then it will be equal to the nisab or above. This type of loan or wealth that one loans out, this zakatable wealth that one loans out, la yamna'u zakah, it doesn't prevent one from paying zakah on it. And the explanation was given that this is just a broad heading. There are times when it prevents one from paying zakah, or rather one is not to pay zakah on it in certain instances, and in certain instances one is to pay zakah on it. So the Sheikh rahimahullah explained to us that, and we looked at it last week, we can return to that, but the summary of it is that if one loans out the money to someone or an entity that one from whom one is able to retrieve that loan at any time, then one is to pay zakah on that loan. So the scholars usually represent this by al-mali, a rich person that has wafa, lahu wafa, and is able to pay. So he's a rich person, is able to pay, is not denying that you lent him or anything like that. But the core of the thing is your ability to retrieve your wealth at any time, whether the person is rich or poor. Whether the person is rich or poor, whatever the situation is, whether it's a human being you lent the money to or an institution or anything, the core thing there is ability to be able to summon your money, your wealth, anytime that you need it. If you were to lend it to a wealthy entity, but you had a contract that you will not be able to get it back until a specified time, and there's no way out of this clause, and you agree to that, then that is not money that you have ability to summon whenever you wish. That is not money that you have ability to summon whenever you wish. And this instance that we talked about is when the time when you'll be able to have the money back is after the due date of your zakat. If you get the money back before the due date of the zakat, then there's no difference, in that case. There's no difference. You will pay zakat on that wealth. However, we said that if the zakat was given to someone or an entity who either disputes it or doesn't dispute it, acknowledges it in fact, but is unable to pay. So this core thing of inability to get your money is what will make the zakat unpayable. So look at, or rather would make the zakat not compulsory, on you to pay. So we looked at all the instances where the one is to pay zakat and where one is not to pay zakat. The Sheikh Rahimahullah gave two examples with regards, to that. So that was just a summary of what we learned last week. With respect to money that one loan to, with respect to money, we made a distinction but in some instances. One of them, as for money that is loaned to someone who has difficulty in paying back, or someone who disputes it, or someone who is intentionally prolonging the payback date, even though he has the means to pay, all of these, there's no zakat on that money. If one gets that money, there is not compulsory, there's no compulsory zakat on that money if one gets that money after the due date of payment of zakat. After the due date of payment of zakat. What about money that is stolen from one? The same thing. What about money that is lost? The same thing. You don't have milk of these amounts of money. They've been stolen from you, or it's been lost, So there's no zakah on them. There's no zakah on them if they do not return to you before the due date of the zakah. What about money that wasn't stolen, wasn't lost, one just forgot about it? You put the money somewhere and, for safekeeping, and you forgot, about the money. Or you didn't forget about the money, but you forgot to whom you gave it or where you kept it. This money is still in your possession. And, the only thing is that you have forgotten. So whenever you remember, like all the acts of ibadah that you remember, that you forget, you are to pay them back. So whether it is salah, for instance, that you forgot, when you remember, you pay back. So these ones, when you find such amounts of money, you pay back. When you remember where you left them, you pay back. So alhamdulillah, today, what we'll be talking about, we'll be going to the next subsection, which is hukmu isqati ad-dayn min az-zakah. The ruling on deducting debts or deducting loan that one gave out from zakah. Before we go ahead with this. We said that this has to do, this section that we're dealing with has to do with both loans and debt. The part that we talked about is loan only. And that is with a given that we understand that the debt aspect also, for the debtor, the one who was given the loan, the zakat also affects him. If the loan he received is up to or above the nisab. So let's give an instance. A man has he has a 3 million dirhams and he loans another person 1 million dirham. In both cases, whether it is 3 million initially or the 2 million that is left with the owner of the money, or that is the creditor, or the 1,000 that is now in the possession of the debtor. Both instances, all these three amounts are zakatable. They are at or they are above the nisab. They are above the nisab. Okay. When one howl, expires with the 2 million in the hands of the creditor, the 2 million in the hands of the creditor spends one howl with the creditor. The 1 million in the hand of the debtor spends one howl in the hands of the debtor. In that cash form, then, or that zakatable form, we're talking about money now. It could be any other zakatable item. So the money that we're talking about is just a placeholder for any other zakatable item that is at or above the nisab. So in this case, once it is the end of one howl, the creditor will pay. So let's say if the debtor is a mu'sir, if the debtor is a mu'sir, then it means that the money is not with him. It means that the money is not with him. Because if the money is with him, then it will not be a mu'sir, except if we find any other instance that is legitimate that would make it difficult for him. For instance, an instance that could be an exception is where somebody is asked to have a certain amount in his bank account before something can be done, and he goes to another person, and gets a loan from him and puts it into his bank account, and he doesn't spend it. So in this case, and he doesn't have any other money that is going to, pay back with. So this money stays in that account. So he's a mu'sir. In this case, he has the money. So, but if he's a mu'sir that doesn't have the money at all, then zakat does not apply to him, because we can't even be talking about nisab where there's no money. If he's a mu'sir in a situation like the one just painted, where he put money in a bank account, and he doesn't withdraw from it from fear of what, violating the terms of what, is there, then he's a mu'sir. In this case, the creditor will pay zakah on the 2 million with him. The creditor will pay zakah on the 2 million with the creditor. The mu'sir is not able to pay, because once he touches the money, something will happen. So he doesn't have tasarruf in that case. But if it's a case where he has tasarruf, maybe he's a ghani, the creditor lent him 1 million out of his 3 million, leaving 2 million with the creditor. The debtor has 1 now. Once it is time to pay zakah, the creditor will pay zakah on how much? 3 million. because he lent somebody who is a ghani money and is able to get the money back anytime he wills. So he's going to pay on 3 million. What about the ghani? If the ghani does not return that money to the creditor before the due date of zakah, then the money in his possession will be 1 million plus whatever else is in his possession, and you calculate that 1 million, that he has with him as what he will pay zakah upon, because he had all the opportunity to pay back that debt before the due date of the zakah. But once he didn't do that out of his own volition, that money is with him. It is his wealth that the original owner, who still the owner, gave him permission to use as his own. So when it's time to pay zakah, he's still using it as his own. He will calculate it as his own, and he will pay zakah based on that. So in summary, whoever you are, whether you are the creditor or you are the debtor, what is with you when one howl clocks is what the Sharia will ask you to pay zakah upon. So you won't say, oh, I loaned, but what is, not only what is due, what you have tasarruf, jurisdiction over. Now, what you have jurisdiction over when one howl clocks is what you will pay zakah upon. So if you are the creditor and you have jurisdiction over the money, you're able to summon it anytime you wish, you pay zakah upon it. If you are the debtor, you have jurisdiction over the money you borrowed, you pay zakah upon it. Now, so with that, we'll go to the next, which is subsection 3, Hukmu isqati dayn min zakah. The ruling on deducting the amounts that you loaned out to someone who is not able to pay back or who doesn't want to pay back, whatever the case may be, from your zakah. There is different opinion amongst the scholars on this, just as with many topics. However, the adilla, the evidences, support one position above the others. So the Sheikh rahimahullah said, La yajuz isqatu dayn min az-zakah. It is not permissible for you to deduct the what you are owed from your zakah. لأن الواجب إنذار المعسر. Because what the Sharia told you to do, when you loan somebody money and is a mu'sir, is not able to pay, is finding it difficult, things are hard for him, is to do what? Is to wait, give him time, give him mahal, give him respite. Allah says, وَإِن كَانَ ذُو عُسْرَةٍ فَنَظِرَةٌ إِلَى مَيْسَرَةٍ. If he is somebody facing difficulty, then فَنَظِرَةٌ, give him time, إِلَى مَيْسَرَةٍ, until things becomes yasir for him, until things become easy for him. So this is what the Sharia asks you to do. If the person stole, or the person is a mumattil, he doesn't want to pay you even though he has the means, then Sharia has also provided for that. Take the case to the hakim. Take the case to the Islamic court to get your rights back from that person. So there's no instance where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said you should take, you should deduct your what you are owed from the zakah. لأن الواجب إنذار المعسر حتى يسهل الله له القضاء. So what the Sharia says you should do with the mu'sir, the one who is facing difficulty in paying back what he owes you, is to give him time. وَلِأَنَّ الزَّكَاةَ إِيتَاء وَإِعْطَاء. And because zakah involves giving. When you deduct the loan, and deduction means, example, somebody owes you 10,000 dirhams. And when it's time for you to pay your zakah, you remember that this person owes me 10,000 dirhams and he's a mu'sir, meaning he's a faqir or miskin. So he qualifies, therefore, to receive zakah from you. So instead of dipping your hand into your zakah that you are to pay, which is what you should do, what is required of you, you now say, well, you owe me, 10,000 dirhams, and I'm to pay zakah, either up to 10,000 dirhams or not up to 10,000, dirhams, whatever the case may be, whatever zakah you plan to give this person, you now say, rather than give it to you, convert what you owe me to the zakah. So you just deduct it from your own end. So maybe you are supposed to pay 20,000 in zakah. You now deduct 10,000 that he owes you. That it is as if I have given him. You write it off. So you say, it's as if I have given him. But in actual fact, you didn't write it off. What you did was to hide it under the heading of zakah. So the scholars say, the Sheikh Rahimahullah, Sheikh Sa'id Al-Qahtaaniy, he says, لِأَنَّ زَكَاءَ إِيتَاءٍ وَإِعْطَاءٍ. Zakah involves giving. When you write off a loan, that is not giving. You haven't given the person anything. You have just waived something of him. So since zakah is given, then it doesn't qualify. There are two different things. وَبَذْلُ لِلْمَالِ إِطَاء مِتَاع وَإِطَاءُ الْبَذْلِ, the same thing, spending money. This is what zakah is all about. لِمُسْتَحِقِّهِ وَلَيْسَتْ إِبْرَاءٍ مِنَ الدُّيُونِ. So zakah is not freedom from debt, i.e., the way to give zakah is not to is not to waive off debt on someone, to free somebody of the responsibility of paying debt. No. Rather, what you're to do, if he has a debt, is give him the money so that he will be able to pay the debt. وإسقاط الدين عن المعسر ليس إتيان ولا إعطاء وإنما هو إبراء وإنه يقصد من ذلك وقاية المال لا مواساة الفقير. So they said the person who deducts what is owed from his zakah, what his intention isn't doing ibadah of giving fuqara, what Allah said is their right on his wealth, the fuqara and the remaining members of the 8th group of recipients of zakah. This isn't his goal. His goal is to protect his money. His goal is to protect his money. So rather than allow the possibility of him not getting his money back to persist, he looks for a way, to offset it. He looks for a way to offset it, which is a trick, and therefore it is not permissible. On this, now, so وردت الأقوال عدة للفقهاء في حكم إسقاط الدين عن المدين مع نية زكاة. So there are different statements from the scholars with respect to deducting the loan that you gave out, what you owed from your zakah, and whilst doing that, having the intention that you are paying zakah. أي يسقطه عن المدين بنية إخراج الزكاة. Same thing. قول الأول, the first of these positions is al-jawaz. Some of the scholars say it is permissible. ذهب بعض التابعين منهم الحسن البصري والعطاء إلى جواز إسقاط الدين وجعله زكاة. Some of the scholars like Imam Hassan al-Basri, والعطاء, they hold the opinion that this deduction is permissible. وكان دليلهم على جواز حديث أبي سعيد الخدري. They base this on their understanding, rahimahumullah, of a hadith by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. What is this hadith? It says, أصيب رجل في عهد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في ثمار ابتاعها فكثرت دينه فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم تصدقوا عليه. Said a man was, affected during the time of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with respect to dates that he sold. He got into this business transaction and فَكَثُرَ دَيْنُهُ, and he got indebted, and the money was much, the debt was much. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to the companions, تَصَدَّقُوا عَلَيْهِ. This is the point of contention. The Prophet ﷺ said, do sadaqah for him. Imam al-Basri, Imam al-Hassan al-Basri, Imam Atta, and other scholars who hold this position, they say that the way they understand this hadith is that فَمِنَ الْوَاجِبِ تَعْدِيَةُ الصَّدَقَةِ إِلَى أَهْلِهَا, that sadaqah is to be given to its recipients, its rightful recipients. And remember, zakah is also called sadaqah. Zakah is also called sadaqah. So it is the obligatory sadaqah, while anything other than zakah is voluntary sadaqah. So said when the Prophet ﷺ said such tasaddaqu alayhi, then it means that it is compulsory sadaqah. But there's no text in there's no evidence in that. Tasaddaqu will mean that they should give him zakah. That is one of the meanings. Tasaddaqu could mean that they should give him voluntary zakah. Voluntary sadaqah to offset his debts. Both of them are things that we're encouraged to do. We don't only offset people's debts by way of zakah. If that is the case, then the people that will be available to help out in offsetting debt will be few, because the vast majority of people are poor. They don't have the nisab. The vast majority of people do not have the nisab. So tasaddaqu holds two meanings, and anyone that is going to claim that it means one of the two rather than the other will need evidence. So when the Prophet so they said فَمِنَ الْوَاجِبِ تَعْدِيَةُ صَدَقَ إِلَى أَهْلِهَا. So their understanding is that only the people who are lawful recipients are to be given this zakah. وَأَنْ يَتَصَدَّقَ مِنْ زَكَاتِهِ الْوَاجِبَةِ, and that this sadaqah to the recipients is to come from the zakah that is wajib. So equating tasaddaqu, which will have two meanings, to zakah that is wajib, that is in need of evidence. فَإِنْ كَانَ إِبْرَاء مِنَ الدَّيْنِ يُسَمَّى صَدَقَةً فَقَدْ أَجْزَأَهُ ذَلِكَ. So they say that the waiving off of wealth can also be called sadaqah. So therefore, it will be counted as zakah. But as we shown, the weakness in that is that this has two meanings. When you say give sadaqah, it could mean give sadaqah that is voluntary. It could mean give sadaqah that is voluntary. القول الثاني, the second, عدم جواز ذهب, is that it is not permissible, and this is the position of the majority of scholars. But as we say oftentimes, our deen is not majority of it's not a deen of majority, rather it's a deen of evidences. So when the evidences are clear, the majority is now the icing on the cake. That even though we have shown you this is also the position of the majority. Position of the majority also helps you, or should also serve to give you pause. If you look at the evidences and it is not what the majority are lined up on, you want to look at that evidence again, comb through it with a finer toothbrush to be really, really sure that the evidence is as it is. So these are two benefits that the position of the majority serve. ذهب الجمهور, majority of scholars are of the opinion ذهب الجمهور إلى عدم جواز إسقاط الدين من المدين وجعله زكاة ولا يجزئ عنه ذلك. The majority of scholars say it is not permissible to deduct what you are owed from the zakah and consider it to be zakah. بل يجب إعطاء المال الزكاة للفقير ليقضي دينه. Rather, what is required is for you to give the faqir money for him to pay his debts. You might not be the only one that he owes money. He may have collected money from somebody before you. He may have collected a loan from somebody after you, but that person is facing a life and death condition or facing possible eviction from his house. Whatever the case, that person has greater need for return of that money than you. So leave it to him. The Sharia has given him a duty to act in the best, in the best way possible. So this is what you are to do. كذلك لا يجوز أن يقضي دين الفقير قد مات ويعتبره زكاة. At the same time, it is also not permissible and not rewardable to pay from your zakah to offset the loan of a deceased person from your zakah, because it's no longer referred to as a faqir or a miskin. He's dead. These ahkam of Sharia are for people that are living. They are for people that are living. The mukallaf, even though they define the mukallaf as somebody who has attained maturity and has his intellect with you. What is not said but automatically understood from that is that he's alive. He's alive. So one cannot pay the debts. Somebody can owe debt and dies without debt on him. So what the people are to do is help him out with, if his wealth is not enough to pay off that debt, then help him out by giving him sadaqah that is non-voluntary. If you don't have people to do that, then the Muslim community will do that. 1 second, please. Now, so the majority, they are the opinion that it is not permissible to deduct from what one is owed, what one is owed from one's zakah, and consider doing so as one paying zakah. And they said if one were to do this, wala yujzi'u anhu dhalik, it will not be rewardable. بل يجب إعطاء المال زكاة للفقير ليقضي دينه. So what is to do is give the zakah to the faqir so that he will offset his debt. كذلك لا يجوز أن يقضي دين الفقير قد مات ويعتبره زكاة. So this is where we stop. That it is also not permissible to pay the debt of a deceased person and consider that to be zakah. the recipients of zakah are living people. And the way to go about helping the deceased that died while indebted is, of course, his debt still stands, is to help him with voluntary zakah. If the Muslims do not have the means to do that, then the Muslim state will dip its hand into its coffers in order to help this deceased person offset his debts. أما إذا قضى دين شخص فقير، هذا إذا قضى دين شخص فقير وهو ما زال على قيد الحياة بالطلب من الفقير، جاز أن يكون ذلك زكاة لأنه فيه معنى التملك من الفقير. However, if he pays, if he gives a zakah to a living person who is a faqir, then this qualifies as zakah, because you have what you call the one of the things that should be present when you're giving zakah is tamalluk. The person who you are giving should own it, should take possession of it. Milk, just as milk is a condition for you to pay zakah on a type of wealth that is zakatable, you must be the owner. Also, the recipients must also have milk ownership of what you are giving him. So that's one of the reasons, again, why a deduction of the of what you are owed of a debt from your zakah does not qualify, because when you waive a debt, the person who you waived it from doesn't own anything. You haven't given anything for him to own. So so there should be tamalluk min al-faqir. So the faqir should have milk ownership of what you gave him. لقد استدل الفقير على عدم الجواز بعدة أدلة. So apart from talking about the weakness in the way the first group of scholars looked at the evidence that they based their point on, the scholars who say it is not permissible for you to deduct have other evidences. They say أن الزكاة تتعلق بعين المال الذي سيخرج منه الزكاة. Said the zakah that you are going to pay is required. The default way of paying zakah is to extract it from the zakatable wealth. So if you are paying, if you're someone that has sa'ima, non-working free-range animal, let's say sheep, you're going to pay in sheep. You're not going to pay in money. If you have cows, you're going to pay in cows. You're not going to pay in sheep. You're not going to pay in money. If you have camels, you're going to pay in camels. You're not going to pay in any other thing other than camel, except where that is not possible. Except where that is not possible. So that is, so it has to be from, the default is for it to come from the specific type of wealth itself. Of course, when it is not possible, or when, especially for something like trade goods, gold and silver, then especially for trade goods, it is the value that you're going to pay. With trade goods, it is a value that you are going to pay, except where what you are trading in is going to be beneficial to the recipients of zakah. If you are trading in dates, you are trading in rice, you are trading in things like this, farm produce like this, that the people consume, then you can give them out of that. But if you are trading in cement, if you are trading in iron nails and things like this, that will not be of benefit to the to the recipients. So you pay in the value. Also, the scholars permit payment of the value in gold. Say the default when you want to pay zakah in gold or silver is to pay from the from the wealth that you're doing zakah on. So if you have 85 grams of gold, then 2.5% of that in gold is what you are to, spend by default. However, they give the permission for you to spend, to give the zakah of its value, the value of that 2.5%. So for gold and for silver. For trade goods, the default is also to pay from that trade goods. However, where that trade good will not be beneficial to the recipients, then you pay you pay the value. Now, so the things that are okay, one other point that I said why they prevent it here. These other ones we've taken it before. Said al-mal al-mawjud inda al-mudin mal yas'ab al-husul alayhi. So they say this is a trick that the creditor is employing if he deducts what is owed from his zakah and considers that to be paying the zakah. Because al-mal al-mawjud inda al-mudin, because the money with the debtor, mal yas'ab al-husul alayhi, is money that is difficult to get. He doesn't know when the man will have money to pay. He's a mu'sir. Or it's maqsoob, somebody, a tyrant somewhere, sees the money, doesn't know when Allah will touch his heart to return his money, or things like this. فَكَانَتْ هَذِهِ حَيْلَةٌ مِنْ الْمُزَكِّي. So this is a trick from the muzakki, لِتَفَادِي ضَيَاعَ الْمَالِ, so as to prevent the loss of his money. الَّذِي أَعْطَاعُ لِلْفَقِيرِ, that he had given this fakir. Say, what can I do? Okay, when it's time to pay zakah, rather than giving the zakah, I will, deduct it. And one of the things that is easy, very easy to, identify this, trick, is that if it is time for him to give the zakah, and I say, okay, give another fakir who doesn't owe you money this amount, he will be reluctant to do so. He won't want to do so, because the other fakir, even though he's a recipient, on an equal pedestal as the fakir who owes him money, he will not get any benefit from any dunya benefit from the fakir that doesn't owe him money. So he wants to kill two birds with a stone in a case where the Sharia does not permit so. Now, so let's go to, so this is regards to deducting loans from zakah and considering it to be zakah. Al-Mabhath as-Sabi', Masail Muhimma fi zakah. 7th subsection, the Sheikh Rahimahullah says there are things that are important under the heading of zakah. Al-Mas'ala al-Ula. The first of these important things is tajibu zakah fi ayn-al-mal. That's what we talked about here. Says zakah by default is required from the material itself that you're paying zakah on. So if it's farm produce, it's beans, it's dates, it's lentils, whatever it is, maize, whatever it is, you are paying zakah on that thing itself. If it's sheep, you are paying in sheep. If it's cow, you're paying in cow. Walaha ta'alluq bi-dhimma. However, even though we have said that you pay from the thing itself, the obligation is tied to you. The obligation of paying is tied to you, not that it is tied to that wealth. And why they say this, to become clearer, is that because the obligation is tied to you, the one who is paying zakah, you do not have an excuse to not pay zakah if the material from which you're supposed to pay zakah becomes destroyed or lost due to error from your side. So you say, I'm supposed to pay zakah, but I left it in the store. I didn't close the door. I didn't lock the door. I left it wide open, and thieves came and carted it away. So because say that because the scholars say that the zakah is from that produce that is zakatable, and it is now lost, it's stolen, so there's no zakah again. No. You will pay the zakah. You will pay the zakah. So it says, وَلَهَا تَعَلُّقْ بِذِمْ كالذهب والفضة والإبل والبقرة والغنم الصائمة والحبوب والثمار بخلاف العروض والتجارة تجب في ذمة المزكي. So some of the scholars so said this is the case with all zakatable things. We listed them, except some of the scholars accept urud at-tijara. They say the default with urud at-tijara is that you pay the qima. Some of the scholars say no, that is not the default. The default is still that you pay from urud at-tijara, from the urud at-tijara. However, whether it is urud, however, if that those urud at-tijara are things that the recipient cannot benefit from, or they are things that are impossible to extract. For instance, you own a 5-bedroom villa and you are selling this villa, not that you are living in it or anything like that. You are selling. So it's time to pay zakah, and the worth of the villa is at or above the nisab. You cannot cut out 1 bedroom or the kitchen sink or whatever from the house. The Sharia does not require that, and if you are to do that, of what benefit will it be to the recipients? So in this case, it is not possible and it is not useful, even if possible, to extract from the property itself, and to also damage the property for the one who is given zakah. And none of this is the goal of the Sharia. So therefore, in these cases, you pay the value. And Allahu A'lam, this seems to be the more a nice way of looking at it. Allahu A'lam. But dalil ala wujubiha fi ayn al-mal, and they say the evidence that points to it, that points to the fact that zakah should be extracted from the type of wealth that one is paying zakah on, is a statement of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, wa fi-l-ghanam fi kulli 40 sha'at. It says, with respect to non-working free-range sheep, then one is to pay 1 sheep out of every 40. So you say 1 sheep, fi kulli 40 sha'at. So you have to pay 1 shat from 40 shat. So, wa qawluhu sallallahu alayhi wa sallam fi Zakaatable wa-s-Sunnah. And also so that is for livestock. What about for farm produce? He said, fi ma saqat sama wa uyun aw kana athariyan al-ushr wa ma suqiya bin-nadh nisf al-ushr. Says, for what, i.e., for the farm produce that is watered by rain or spring, or there's groundwater that the plants can, get to on its own, all these are supplied, without effort from you, then you should do what? Al-Ushr, you should pay 10%. However, if you supply the irrigation yourself, nisfu Ushr, then you pay half. So the key word there is this ma, fi ma. So this ma is to be substituted for the type of farm produce. So if it's dates, you substitute it with dates. So, and also the same of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with cows also. He said, وَفِي الْبَقَرَةِ فِي كُلِّ ثَلَاثِينَ تَبِيعًا. For every, 30 cows, you pay 1 cow. That is a tabi'ah. وَفِي كُلِّ أَرْبَعِينَ مُسَنَّةً. And for every 40 cows, you pay 1 cow. That is a musanna. وَقَوْلُ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ فِي زَكَاةِ الذَّهَبِ. And also when the Prophet was talking about gold and silver, he said, فَإِذَا كَانَتْ لَكَ مِئَةَ دِرْهَمٍ. If you have 200 dirham worth of silver, وَحَالَ عَلَيْهَا الْحَوْلِ, and 1 haul clocks while it's with you, فَفِيهَا خَمْسَةُ دَرَاهِمْ. Then you have to pay 5 dirham worth of silver. Again, dirham is the weight of silver during time of Prophet ﷺ. So another dirham that we're or fiat currency that you're spending now. وَلَيْسَ عَلَيْكَ شَيْءٍ يعني في الذهب حتى يكون لك 20 dinar. And so over here, the Prophet ﷺ in silver, Prophet ﷺ say you should pay what? خمسة دراهم. Pay 5 dirham worth of silver. Dirham is for silver, while dinar is for gold. So the Prophet ﷺ said, there's nothing for you to pay in gold until the gold that you have reaches 20 dinar. فإذا كان لك 20 دينار وحال عليها الحول ففيها نصف دينار. If you have 20 dinar with you and 1 year, 1 lunar calendar clocks, ففيها نصف دينار, then you have to pay half a dinar. In both cases, whether it is 5/40 or half over 20, we are talking about 1/40, which is 20, which is 2.5%, which is 2.5%. So all of this, the Prophet ﷺ was talking about you paying the zakat from the material that you are paying zakat on, from the type of wealth that you are paying zakat, or whether it is gold, whether it's silver, whether it is cars, whether it doesn't matter. The default is to pay from the material itself. Now, so وهذا المعنى كون الزكاة تجب في عين المال، أي يجب إخراج الزكاة من نفس المال لكن لها تعلق بالذمة. يعني لو تلف المال بعد وجوب الزكاة فيه وهذا المال مستقر في ملكه فإن تلفه لا يسقط عنه الزكاة لأنها صارت دينا في ذمته، لأنه عندما تم الحول كان عليه أن يبدر بإخراجها ولكنه تأخر. So to say that what they are trying to get at, the scholars, by explaining this, that the zakah is to be extracted from the type of wealth that one pays, but it is also linked with one's responsibility. It's a link to the payer, is that whenever the material that you are to pay from is destroyed or lost or whatever due to your negligence, then because the right to pay still is linked to you, then the obligation still remains. The obligation to pay, rather, is linked to you, then the obligation remains. The obligation remains because you are the one, and that once it is time to pay zakah, you have to pay immediately. So if the loss or destruction of the property of the zakah happens after the due date of giving the zakah, because you were late to hand it over, then the lateness is yours. It was due to your negligence. It was due to your negligence. But in the case where this was not the case, where there was no negligence from your side, then you are not going to pay. Why? Because when it was time to pay, and once it was time to pay, and you weren't negligent, then the continued stay of the wealth with you, the continued retention of the wealth with you, puts you in a position of a caretaker for that wealth. And one of the principles of usul al-fiqh is that the damin la al-mu'tamin la daman alayh. The one who is trusted is not, is not liable, has no liability. So the default, if you go to a doctor, for instance, and things go, wrong, then is that he is not liable. This is the default until you can prove. So the onus of proving that he did something wrong is on you, because in going to him, you didn't go to him because you're somebody that will hurt you. You didn't go to him because you knew he was not qualified or anything like that. No, you went to him because you believe that he had these qualities of somebody that can be trusted with your health. So once you have agreed to submit yourself in that way, then the liability is yours until you can prove that the liability is his. If you give somebody money to keep for you, and thieves break into his house and steal the money, there's no liability on him. There's no liability on him because you trusted him to take precautions with safeguarding your wealth. And he did that. So thieves coming to steal, it is not due to negligence on his part, except you can prove that, the negligence is from him. So on all the similar things, or the same thing applies to similar, situations, apart from the two that we've mentioned. So being the one who is now the caretaker between all the time periods after the due date of the zakah, then he must not be negligent. If he's not negligent and anything happens to the zakah, anything negative happens to the zakah, then he is not liable. Otherwise, he is liable. Mas'ala athaniya, la yu'tabar fi wujub az-zakah imkan al-ada. Okay, let's take this one and the next one together, which is al-mas'alatu al-thalitha. La yu'tabar fi wujub az-zakah biqa'ul mal. These two things spring from, especially the second one, spring from what we just talked about, which is, what happens when the material, the type of wealth that you're supposed to pay zakah on is destroyed and things like that. The first one says that the Sharia does not look at your ability to pay. The Sharia does not look at your ability to pay when it is deciding whether zakah is compulsory on you or not. Again, the Sharia does not look at your ability to pay when it is deciding whether you are to pay zakah or not. The first thing that will come to mind is that, doesn't Allah says, La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wus'aha? Allah does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear? No, that's not what the scholars are talking about. What they're talking about is, will be understood when we give examples. And the example here is that, so let's see if they move the share. Okay, so the Sheikh Rahimahullah says, there's a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, La zakah fi malin hatta yahula alayhi al-hawl. That there's no zakah that is compulsory on one to pay on a type of wealth until 1 year clocks, 1 lunar year. فمفهوم الحديث وجوب الزكاة عند تمام الحول. So they say the reason why they're saying that the Sharia does not look at your ability to pay is that what the Sharia is looking at are those shurut that we talked about. One of them being al-hawl. So once 1 year clocks and all the other prerequisites are present, then automatically it becomes compulsory on you to pay the zakah on it. Once that 1 year clocks, the Sharia will not look at is he able to pay before saying is it compulsory on you or not. So it's being compulsory on you or not is one thing. Another thing is he able to pay or not? That is what the scholars are saying. So you first of all deal with, is it compulsory on him or not? Because if it's not compulsory on him, then the second one doesn't matter, which is, does he have the ability to pay? So what must be dealt with first is it compulsory on him? And in doing so, it doesn't look at, is he able to pay? That's the second issue. وَلِأَنَّ هَذِهِ عِبَادَةٌ فَلَا يُشْتَرَطْ لِوُجُوبِهَا إِمْكَانِ الْأَدَاءِ كَسَائِرِ الْعِبَادَاتِ فَالصَّوْمُ يَجِبُ عَلَيْهِ. Okay, so it said, because this zakah is an ibadah, that's why in the definition that we put together, we put ibadah as one of them, taking it from one of the definitions of the scholars. So it is ibadah, and for ibadah, فَلَا يُشْتَرَطْ لِوُجُوبِهَا إِمْكَانِ الْأَدَاءِ. That for being the ability to pay is not factored when the Sharia is saying you should do, or whether when the Sharia is deciding whether a particular type of ibadah is compulsory on you or not. So he gives an example to make it clear. It says, فَالصَّوْمُ يَجِبُ عَلَى الْحَائِضِ. Fasting is compulsory on the woman that is menstruating, even though she doesn't have the tahara that is required to fulfill it. But the Sharia still says it is compulsory on her. That she will do it, when she will do it is a second thing altogether. But the first thing is it compulsory on her or not? Once we establish that, that is when we now go, okay, when she, when she finishes her haid, she will pay back. فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخْرَى. The same thing that applies to the woman, the haid, also applies to the traveler and the one who is ill. However, in the case of the traveler and the one who is ill, the traveler can choose to fast or not to fast. The one who is ill can choose to fast with difficulty, so long as it will not cause a deterioration of his health or cause him death. But the woman, she is prohibited from, from fasting. However, all these three people, the sick person, the traveler, and the woman, once the time of Salat arrives, it automatically becomes compulsory on them. So this is what the scholars are saying. They are doing it is a separate matter. Well, so this summarizes, that. So the next one is La yu'tabar fi wujubi zakah biqa'ul mal. So we're taking that also, that the persistence of the wealth, the Sharia does not look at the persistence of the wealth after the due dates of the zakah if you are negligent. If they want to pay zakah, the time to pay zakah arrives, and he was negligent after that time. Either he delayed, he was procrastinating, I'll pay later, I'll take the zakat. I've already extracted it, so I'll give it tomorrow, I'll give it tomorrow, I'll give it tomorrow, until, maybe goats went into that place and, ate, the farm produce or whatever happened to it. Then the destruction of that wealth does not exempt him from payment, because the Sharia does not look at the persistence of the produce, of the type of wealth of the zakah in that instance, to determine whether he is to pay or not. However, if he wasn't negligent, then the Sharia will say that yes, it was compulsory on him to pay. That was a previous topic that we just looked at. Immediately it clocked. Immediately it clocked. He had the intention of paying the zakah, and he wasn't. So at that point, he became a caretaker for the Sharia institution. And we did not find any, negligence or willful damage on his part. So his case would be like the case if he had given it to somebody who works in the zakat institution, and as he was going back to the store, robbers, attacked him and carted away the zakat, produce. There will be no difference between that in the eyes of the Sharia and someone who, and the farmer who was robbed of the farm produce that he wanted to pay zakat on, right there on his farm. He will only be liable if he now delayed or he was negligent. So this this is on that matter. So inshallah, we'll stop here, and we'll continue next week with zakah on the debts that is coexist with a deceased person's estate. Somebody dies, he leaves amount of money, but apart from that money that he left, he also left debts that he left unpaid. And in addition to that, he also has zakah that he left unpaid. So there are three things now. He had wealth, he left debt to human beings, he also left debt to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He owed both human beings and Allah money, and he left some money. What are we to do in this case? Inshallah, if Allah spares our lives till next weekend, we'll take that. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.